When a trio of three girls went by, Aki was examining the map for a model room. They disagreed on whether Aki was a boy or a girl. When Aki encountered a girl with black hair, he asked her for directions to his motel room. That girl made a kind of compliment to him. Although Aki was a boy, he was frequently misidentified as a girl by others. Therefore, he was determined to live his life as a boy. When it started to rain, he had just done speaking. He entered after swinging open the door. A blonde female with a smile that turned him red was standing behind him. When Aki was soaked, Aya took him to the bathroom for a shower. When Aya noticed he was wet, she told him that girls shouldn't catch a cold and then led him to the restroom. Aya mistook him for a girl, which made Aki irritated while he took a shower. He blushed when Aya entered the room because she wanted to wash his back. Aya pulled him away just as he was ready to reject. He pondered whether or not to disclose the truth. At last, he decided to speak it. Aya held the belief that girls go through puberty, thus looking like boys was normal. She asked what about guys as he claimed to her that he was a boy. She would take care of him when he was young, even biting his ear to make him blush. When Aki opened his eyes, he was on Aya's thigh. Aya took him out of the restroom after he jumped up and claimed to be unconscious. When he started to dizzy and become shy, Aya dressed for him. Aya claimed she was aware he was a boy. She drew Aki back and embraced him close to her chest, making him blush. Aya claimed that she had made him some soup and instructed him to eat it at the table. Aki thought Aya was a lovely girl who made excellent meals as he observed her cook. Aya suddenly ran back to give him a hug and called him Aki-chan. He pushed Aya away and warned her against using such language because he was a boy. There, he believed he would be treated as a girl. He thought that he would become a guy as long as Aya paved the way for him. But his thoughts were so inappropriate, so he ruffled his hair. He assumed that Aya needed assistance from guys when he observed her drying the clothes, but he kept her bra somehow. After observing her tending to the flowers, he tried to water them himself, but toppled over while doing so. He attempted to help after seeing Aya clean the house, but slipped. He received a hug from Aya, who advised him not to over-exhibit himself. He stopped referring to him as Aki-chan, and told him to kiss her on the cheek like a man. Three girls then entered the room just as he was going to kiss Aya. When they first meet, Aki thought Yuzu and Sumi were strange, whereas Muri seemed normal. He became embarrassed when Aya told him to carry on what had already happened, and hurried back to his room. Aya accidentally let Yuzu see her wake Aki up in the morning with her chest. Yuzu said that they couldn't do that at all anymore. Aki was depressed since he was a villager boy who had come up to study and had no friends. Aya agreed to assist him, walked around to change his clothing, and told him to speak to her as if she was a friend. He believed that talking to a girl would help him mature. She removed her top and placed his hand on her chest. He kissed Aya goodbye and left for school, and he'd begin a new life in Tokyo. Episode 2. Aya was waiting to greet Aki when he got home from school dressed as a cheerleader. As Aya sat next to him dressed in a cheerleader outfit, Aki found it difficult to concentrate. When Yuzu and Muri entered to inform him that their school was going to conduct a sports festival and wanted him to join their team. He was questioning Aya why she dressed that way. He could train with Aya's assistance, and she could also aid in muscle relaxation. Aki blushed when her chest touched his back. She wished Aki would flex his muscles. They walked extremely evenly together as they practiced jogging with their legs bound together. But because of Aki's height, when he ran, Aya's chest kept smacking him in the face, making him flush. Aki was worn out from running from daylight until night. Aya claimed that he was panicking when Aya unexpectedly showed up while he was in the shower. She only wanted to trim his hair. According to Aya, she chopped his hair and encouraged him to participate in the sporting event. She did the trick of Aki's head and rinsed his hair. Aki was having fun in the bathtub when he noticed Aya taking a shower. He blushed and shielded his eyes. He entered the tub after Aya advised to do so in order to manage his breathing. Both of them played in the tub while sprinkling water. When Aki heard Yuzu yell, he opened the entrance to the space and rushed inside. Yuzu gave him a hug and instructed him to shoo the spider away. He made fun of Yuzu by saying that she was frightened by a spider. She dished out a punch to Aki. Then, in front of Yuzu, a spider materialized. Sumi fled once again as she yelled. She started bleeding from her nose after being held by Yuzu. The spider was there when she entered the room. She was found laying on the floor as Yuzu and Aki entered. He was taken shopping by Aya. He believed that everyone who saw them on the road assumed they were lovers. In reality, though, they were brother and sisters. Aya and Aki visited Yat's store. He had intended to seek Aya for assistance at the beer fest celebration. Aya held Aki's hand as they went shopping together. Just holding his hand like that was all Aki wanted. Yuzu forced them to release their hand-holding after noticing them on their way home. Yuzu inquired as to whether Aki had discovered Aya's vulnerability. Yuzu handed Aki a scary movie to watch because he was still unsure. Aya offered to watch the movie with Aki, and while they were viewing, she gave him comfort. When he returned to the room, Yuzu called him a coward. She tried to turn Aki into a pervert, but quickly gave up. Yuzu questioned Aki about if he still wanted to find out what Aya was scared of, after he declared he no longer wanted to do it. When he returned to Aya and inquired about her worst fear, she said that she was terrified if a naked person entered the room while she was fast asleep. Aya was sound asleep when Aki entered her room at night, so he left. Holding his hand, Aya instructed him to sleep with her. Yuzu noticed that they were sleeping holding hands when she awoke. Episode 3. Yuzu questioned Aki over the age gap in romantic relationships. When Yuzu entered his room, he claimed that he felt normal and inquired as to her whereabouts. She went downstairs to his room after claiming it was too hot outside. He was forced to sit next to Yuzu on the bed. Yuzu sat down on Aki's thigh after standing up. Yuzu was reading a part in which the two main characters were hugging each other without flipping the page. Aki witnessed this. She didn't believe such a situation had occurred in the novel, which caused Yuzu's face to flush. Yuzu wanted that Aki would change the page if he didn't. Yuzu blushed and sprinted out of the room after Aki inadvertently touched her. When Aya brought the cake, she questioned Aki about why Yuzu had left the room. Aya told Aki to repeat the process as he handed her book to her. Yuzu inadvertently turned to take up the book when she noticed it. Sumi turned to reveal to be the person Aki had been convinced was following him all day. She was curious after hearing Aki and Yuzu's tale. Aki was taken aback when she drew near to him. He expressed his gratitude to Sumi after helping him figure out the puzzle that made her bashful. Sumi was curious to look around his room. Her ass was exposed when she knelt down, making Aki flush. Aki inquired about whether she loved the white teddy bear after she picked it up. He remarked that the teddy bear was quite lovely, and Sumi concurred, holding his hand. When Aya entered and saw Sumi, she emphasized that her sole goal was to identify Aki's source of guilt. Sumi, Muri, and Yuzu rode roller coasters, but Yuzu was too short, 4 meters to ride. After realizing her mistake, Sumi went to her room and locked the door. To soothe Sumi, Yuzu made Aki to dress like a girl. He entered the space in an effort to console Sumi. He was tasked with changing Sumi's clothing. Even after altering, she was disappointed that she couldn't carry Yuzu. Aki volunteered she could carry him to ease her sorrow. Aki was being carried by Sumi, who thought she was well. He told her to lay him down. "Thank you," Sumi said. Yuzu carried the chicken to the park on his head. Aki heard someone calling his name as he entered the house. When he turned around, Muri was ready to ask him for something. In Aki's opinion, boys should assist girls, so he concurred. Muri instructed him to enter her chamber and change into his servant uniform. He was as small as her, therefore she wanted him to check the size of his skirt. She wanted him to try all of her outfits and pose for pictures. But he refused. Muri's face clouded as she had to continue. He eventually declined, but Muri insisted on making him wear it. Aya went up when she heard a ruckus. Aya didn't recognize him in disguise, so she took refuge in the closet with Muri. He went back to his room, but he remembered Muri's scent. Episode 4. Yuzu inquired Aki about Jun's spouse. However, Aya told Aki to wake up when he considered marrying her. He dropped the water glass upon Yuzu's book. Yuzu was enraged by when Aki ignored her when she told her that she was a very compassionate woman. Muri and Sumi showed up as the two were still at odds. Marriage was a topic of conversation. While contemplating marriage, Aki returned to his room. He had planned to wed Aya, he believed. There was something he had to do for Aya. He pulled the book out and read about the importance of assisting a woman in the kitchen, so he walked downstairs to the kitchen in the evening and asked Aya to prepare dinner. Aya thoroughly instructed him. Yuzu enjoyed the lunch and inquired as to who had prepared it. She knew Aki cooked it, so she became enraged when Aki beat her. Yuzu followed Aki, who grieved that he had done little to help. When Aki noticed that and asked her, Yuzu informed him of their impending nuptials. Everyone enjoyed big boots that made Aki spray all over the pool, she remarked. Yuzu put on the bra as she had purchased. Yuzu told Aki that she was at the same age as Sumi and Muri, but that her breasts and height were different. Aki was shocked to see a computer in her room when she escorted him inside by a woman, and he began exploring for ways to create big boobs on the computer. He found a solution by using slapped Aki after reading it. If there was a chest concerned, Aki suggested they should consult Aya. Aya claimed that he was rude and drew him to her chest. Aki took notice. He proceeded to notify Yuzu. He entered the room to find Yuzu stroking her armpits, which caused Aki to stand motionless. Yuzu swung her fist violently. Her boobs would be big as long as Yuzu was selfish, made her furious and kicked Aki out. Yuzu spotted Aya's bra as well. She believed that she could get bigger boots that made her happy. Aya desired to repair the roof. Aki noticed this and sought to make amends with her. They found the ladder had fallen while they were still conversing. He left his phone in the room despite Aki's attempt to retrieve it. Aya halted him as he attempted to descend. Without anticipating its terrain, they waited for the person who was coming to assist together. Aki tripped and fell while he was daydreaming about Aya. Yuzu didn't anticipate Yuzu to set up the ladder and climb to see Aki, so he caught him and gave him a bear hug. In the pouring rain, Yuzu, Sumi, and Muri returned from school. The three girls hurriedly took showers before Aki, who would take a shower later, and they all did so together. Aki was placed on Aya's thigh as they were talking about her. When Yuzu entered, she told Aki to get up and take a shower. Episode 5. They purchased a tank to bathe in because the summer was hot and uncomfortable. Yuzu, according to Muri, wanted to flaunt her brand new bra. Yuzu splashed the water because she was shy. The sight of Sumi changing mortified Aki. Aki was instructed by Aya to distribute the watermelons to everyone by going to the kitchen. When he entered, he was startled to see Aya wearing a bathing suit. Aya questioned him why he didn't join the others in playing in the pool. Aki admitted that he lacked the courage, so he suggested that if he was shy, they could take a shower together. Aya pushed Aki into the pool, and as the two of them were considering whether to take a shower, Aki was debating himself whether or not to. Muri captured a photo of the two taking a bath. Muri said that when Aki inquired about what she was doing, when he noticed her holding a camera, I took the camera to shoot helter-skelter shots. Aki inquired about the photo and asked Muri to show him the photographs she had taken. Yusu's image caught Aki's eye. Muri stated that she already knew, therefore she would depart. Sumi beckoned her back as she was ready to depart. They punched up, which piqued Aki's interest. Muri showed Sumi some of Yusu's images from the previous month, which caused her nose to bleed. Muri showed Aki something while requesting that he keep it a secret. She walked Aki up to her room. Muri put a book in front of the door, and then she waited for Yuzu to appear so she could take a picture. She requested Aki to spy on Aya on her behalf. Aki was holding a camera to picture Aya when she spotted him. She instructed Aki to watch the film for pictures after allowing him to snap a few more pictures. Muri received the camera from him, but she rejected it. Muri said that it was a prank when Aki claimed that he was going to vanish. Even though Aki had a summer break, he still had to complete his homework. Getting to work on his assignments with Aya made him delighted. He swiftly cleaned the room immediately after the departure of Muri, Yuzu, and Sumi for school. Aki was taking a bag when Aya put on her teacher's uniform. To get items for Aya, he frantically hurried back and forth. Aya instructed him to sit down and complete his homework. He sat there carefully working on his schoolwork. Aya promised him that as long as he finishes the work, she would reward him. Aya was overheated, so she removed her skirt, making Aki blush. She drew him in close and let him lean on her. When Aki woke up and went to the bathroom, he was having a good time. He had completed his homework, so Aya bought him ice cream. Yep delivered a pail of clean water to them. Aya wanted to reward everyone for finishing their homework. Alcoholic beverages Aya consumed caused her to assault everyone. Aya fell to the ground on top of him, just as she was about to attack. When Aya awoke, she discovered that she was on top of Aki. She stated she couldn't recall anything, which made Aki happy that he hoped Aya had no recollections of what had just happened. Aya stood up to leave and assured him that she would wait. Episode 6. When Aki returned home with his books, he discovered a blonde girl changing her clothing in his room. He mistook himself for being in the wrong room, but the girl ran out to apologize. She was excited when she saw the high school book, and Aki found her to be very energetic. She claimed that because Aki had not turned on the air conditioner, she felt overheated and wanted to remove her skirt, shocking Aki. But she was only kidding. The two exchanged greetings and introductions. When she first heard Aki's name, she assumed that he was a girl. She ran up to him and said she would satisfy him by stripping him of his pants. Yuzu entered and saw Nana trying to flee, but Yuzu caught her. Aki inquired as to whether Yuzu was acquainted with this young woman. Yuzu claimed that she was formerly the club's president. The two battled because Yuzu didn't want Nana to seduce Aki. They both brought up old mathematical puzzles. Nana attempted to take away Aki after Yuzu lost Nana, but Yuzu refused to allow it. While the two were scurrying, Aya heard a noise and opened the door. The fact that Aya and Nana were sisters, but had different personalities, struck Aki as odd. When Aki awoke, he discovered Nana's hand on his chest. He received an apology from Nana for going to the wrong room. Nana entered Aki's room to retrieve a gaming system from the cupboard. She taught Aki how to play games because he had no prior experience. He had to take a seat on Nana's lap. Nana held his hand and taught him the game, since he was playing it carelessly. Nana was delighted and screamed when Aki concentrated to play and won. Aki found himself resting on top of Nana when he finally opened his eyes. When he woke up, Nana instructed him to carry on with the game. Aki consistently lost when the two played against each other. Aya disagreed with Nana's request to keep him as a pet. When Nana and Aya urged Aki to apply sunscreen on her, he was tending to the flowers. When he awoke, it had all been a dream. When he turned around, Nana was asleep on his bed. Everyone used the pool that day for swimming. When two girls approached Aki and asked him to hang out with them, he was standing alone. In order to leave, Aki explained that he had to wait for someone. As Nana approached, she yelled at the two girls to leave Aki alone. When Nana realized that they were her friends, he felt a sense of relief. They remembered their first meeting with Aki. The two young ladies inquired of Nana if Aki had a partner. Aki was only Nana's pet, she insisted. After stepping outside, Aya instructed the two pals to look after Nana on her behalf. The two were rendered completely blind by the light emanating from Aya's body. Aya refused to lend Aki to Nana, since Aki would train with her in swimming. When Nana begged her to, Nana begged her, and the two engaged in a swimming contest to win Aki. Due to her youth and Aya's large bust, Nana believed that she would prevail. She didn't anticipate Aya to swim on her back, allowing her breast to rise above her to avoid the water resistance. When she noticed her two pals hugging Aki, Nana swam over to the location and asked who had won. She ordered Aya to race once more, since she was so furious. This time, she swam quickly, but when she lifted her head, she noticed Aya there with her, so she requested to swim once again. They galloped together from noon until dusk, until they were exhausted. When Aya urged Aki to the pool for swimming practice, Aki informed her that the pool was closed.